Dr. Samantha Carter is phenomenal. And she doesn't rest at being an actor alone. She's also a director, producer, role model, and all-round nice person. And I love the fact that she's also a fighting warrior. And I love the fact that she had so much really tricky science dialogue that I understood about half of. But I appreciated it nonetheless. So please give a great big, warm FedCon welcome to Amanda Tapping.
I've only been here a day, but wow, it's been amazing, and you guys are awesome. So thank you, Dirk, and thank you, FedCon, for making this so fun. If you were in my photo line today and didn't get your photo, it'll happen. I don't know when. Maybe later in the day. They're figuring it out, but it will happen. I promise, I promise.
They said 8 p.m.
Really? Okay. All right. I'll have to freshen up a bit. Okay, yeah, but okay, 8 o'clock. Great. Thank you for letting me know that. Okay, hi.
Hi, good morning, Amanda.
Good morning.
The very first convention I've ever attended was FedCon in Vancouver in the year 2000. I had no idea what was going on,
Yeah.
why I was there, what I was doing, but I'm still here not having a clue what I'm doing.
But you still come, which is good.
There are two people here in the room with me who were in Vancouver with me to this convention. My question is, would you have ever imagined when you got cast for Sam Carter that you'd still be up there doing this with us?
Never in a million years. I had no idea. I had no idea what we were stepping into. I think, and I certainly didn't realize how enduring the fandom would be and how enduring the show would be. So yeah, I had no clue. It's such a gift. I mean, I think Terrell may have said it yesterday, but it really is the gift that keeps on giving. And the opportunity to come to these conventions and meet you guys and chat and giggle, and it's fantastic. We had no idea, none. I remember, I've told this story a million times, I'm sure, but when Michael, Chris, and I first saw the Stargate, and we all went, whoa, whoa, this is really big. This is kind of a big show, huh? Wow. Yeah, I would say, but thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
FedCon? Yes, now it is. I'm close enough to the mic, guys. My question is a follow-up to yesterday's. Can you tell us a bit about how Sanctuary came to be and how you were able to move it from the small web show it was to the bigger screen?
Yeah. So I think yesterday, like I said, Damien had a spec script. And I said, I don't know, maybe in my meet and greet, but Damien had a spec script and he showed it to Martin Wood and myself. And I loved it. And I phoned him right away and I was like, dude, this is amazing. We got to do this. And so he created a company to make it into a web series. But it was really hard to monetize on the web at that time, and we didn't really know what we were doing. We know how to make content, we didn't know what to do with it. But because it got so many views and it did so well, networks started calling and saying, hey, well, what about this as a series? And so we found, through somebody I know, we found private financing for the show. And literally, they gap financed the series. So they would give us a certain amount of money at the beginning of the season, and we would have to sell it around the world. And we had a distributor, but there were times when Martin, Damien, and I would like go to England and meet with Sky and whomever, ITV, and buy our show. So it was very homegrown in a lot of ways. But I don't think it looked it. Like we had a good team. So we were, it's an independent television series, 75% green screen, shot on the red camera that had never been done before, and yeah.
That was great.
But it was amazing. It was an amazing experience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. I have a current question. The current WGA writers' strike.
Yeah.
How does it impact your work?
It's a great question. I was just on a series, the first season of a new show called The Irrational with Jesse L. Martin, you may know from The Flash or Law and Order, blah, 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 he's the lead. And I directed their 5th episode, and it was as I had started directing. I'd gone through prep with my writer, but it was 2 days into the shoot, and the Writers Guild struck, so my writer had to go home. But because I had a finished script, I was able to continue shooting. We just weren't allowed to change any lines. And they had a finished script for episode 6 and 7 of the series, and they're shooting 7 now, and then they're done for the season. So basically, all the shows in Vancouver that were based out of the States have shut down, or are finishing whatever scripts they have, and then we wait. We wait and see what happens. I think the writers have every right to strike, and in fact, I think it was imperative that they did. And now our contracts are up for the Screen Actors Guild, and my contract for the Directors Guild of America is coming up, so we'll see. Could be very, very lean times right now. I'm fortunate because I have been working this year, and I have a Canadian show that I'm doing in the fall, so I'm very lucky. But yeah, it's going to shut down, and more. So what happened, because the strike was coming, people knew it was going to happen, all the networks held back some of their shows, so they'll have content for their audiences for the next few months. But they weren't picking up any new shows or buying anything or starting new series, so it's going to be scary. We'll see. I think it's supposed to go till, well, who knows? Rumor has it maybe August, September, so yeah. Time to learn how to do cool summer things. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, so growing up, I always loved astronomy, and while watching Samantha Carter as a teenager, I wanted to become an astrophysicist, and I did.
Whoa! Congrats, that's amazing.
Yeah, I'm lucky in that sense, yeah. So yesterday you said that you like to understand the science behind the show. So do you still follow up on some science news? Anything caught your attention in particular recently, or?
Well, the black holes have been very interesting. A little daunting. But I don't study it as much as I did, obviously, when I was Sam Carter. Then I became Helen Magnus, and I studied different things, and then, yeah, so I'm not as, I don't know if I could still blow. Can you blow up the sun?
I don't know, but I do study the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy, so yeah, it's and the stars around it, so
Yeah.
with your black hole episode in Stargate was fantastic, with the time dilation. And
Yeah. So, I love how science fiction is science fact. It's pretty cool. Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and if you figure out how to blow up a sun, remind me. Thanks. Hello.
Hey Amanda, I love you. I love Stargate, and Sam Carter was a role model for me while I grew up. And I don't know if you remember the episode, but in Singularity season 1 with Cassandra, when you were in the bunker.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, you said to her, "You're very brave, remember?" And she answered, "I'm very brave." So that kind of became my line when I struggled, or when I struggled with mental health issues. So I noticed that you do an event with Companion about mental health.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you if you can give us any advice about mental health or any tips how you cope with it if you ever experienced it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we all do struggle with either anxiety or depression or feeling isolated or feeling unheard, unseen. The best advice that one of my friends gave me, because I was always so afraid to reach out to my friends because I didn't want to be a burden. And if I was really struggling with something, I would just sort of shoot myself down the rabbit hole and try to figure it out on my own. And one of my friends said, "You're a really shitty friend." And I went, "What?" And they said, "Yeah, because you're always there when we need you, but you never share what you're going through. And friends need to share with each other. And part of our need with you, Amanda, is that we need to be able to help you when you need help." And I went, "Oh," and there I was thinking I was a great friend because I wasn't bothering you. And so the lesson learned was reach out to people. Reach out to your friends, reach out to the fandom, reach out to your family, but talk about it. The only way we're ever going to destigmatize these very real feelings that we have is if we talk about them. And so my girlfriends literally pulled me out of the rabbit hole. And every once in a while, when they sense that I'm going to dive back down there, they're like, "No, tapping, come on, come on." So I'm fortunate in that my friends recognized that I was struggling and that they reached out. But that's my biggest piece of advice. Do not do it alone. And you may feel like you're alone, but there are a million people that you can reach out to. There's so many resources. You can even go online and talk to people, other fans, you know? There's always somebody who will listen. So I think that's my biggest piece of advice. Hello.
Hello. I also wanted to thank you because you inspired me to study robotics and AI. So I'm working on my PhD right now.
Wow.
So thank you for that. And I wanted to ask you, because yesterday you mentioned that you always wanted to be an actress. How did that came to be? What inspired you to choose that path? Or was it a specific person that inspired you?
It was going to the pantomimes as a little kid, like the Christmas pantomimes, and watching the actors on stage. And they would always call kids up from the audience, and I was always had my hand up, and they never picked me. Lionel Blair. Anyway. But I knew, I kept watching the people up on stage, and I was like, I want to do that. I mean, I had other aspirations. I was like, maybe I'll be a doctor. Maybe I'll be a marine biologist. Like, I think, doesn't everyone go through a marine biology phase? But, so it was that. It was watching that. And then it was watching shows like Carol Burnett. I don't know if you guys know Carol Burnett, but it was watching shows like that where I went, I want to do what she's doing. So Carol Burnett was a huge influence for me. Comedian, American comedian who did the sketch comedy show. If you could just find it on YouTube and be prepared to laugh. It's amazing. So yeah, those were my sort of big inspirations.
Thank you very much. And also thank you for taking pictures without so patiently.
Oh, thank you for lining up, my gosh. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck with your PhD.
Hi, Amanda.
Hello.
First of all, I wanted to say that you are light. You are just amazing. And my question is, in your career as an actor and as a director, were there moments when you were driving home from set and you thought like, damn it, now I have this amazing idea and I should have done that differently? Were there moments like that?
All the time. Oh yeah. I constantly, and especially as a director, because I prep so thoroughly, and I know my shot list, and then I go in and I can make my day, but there are times when I'm like, I really should have gotten a close-up of that, and I'll wake myself up in the middle of the night going, I should have done, and 9 times out of 10 it works out, but yeah, there are moments all the time. So I go, is it too late to run back and get this shot?
And do you have to practice letting go?
Yes, 100% you have to. It's like I can't change it, I can't do anything, you know, it's just move on, get ready for the next day. But yeah, a lot, for sure. I think directors constantly question themselves. You may finish and feel like you've got a good day, but I mean, my brain is a bit of a jerk. And so my brain at like 2 or 3 in the morning, generally for most of my life, has woken me up and gone, hey, you awake? What? I just thought we could worry about shit. Oh, okay. Asshole. Okay, all right, what do you want to worry about? So yeah, I constantly do it. Long answer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello. First, I love you. As we all do. Me, my mom, and my girlfriend traveled to here with a car from Sweden.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Welcome.
thank you. And my question for you is, how is your working hours compared between being an actor and being a director?
Pretty much the same, to be honest. So, as an actor, I was usually in an hour to an hour and a half before a crew call to get purdy, and sometimes successfully. And then, but as soon as I was wrapped, I was done. And often I wasn't. You know, as actors, you're not always the last scene of the day. I always was, but it's another story, which I'll tell in a minute. But as a director, I get to work an hour before crew call, and I go through the sets with this production designer and set deck, and then I would often stay an hour after just to talk to the crew or certain people about what's coming up the next day. So I envy actors now, believe it or not. When I'm on set, I'm like, oh, you're on your phone. How's that? How's that sitting and relaxing thing working out for you? Sorry, I gotta go. But yeah, actors are like, actor, director. Yeah, the hours are about the same, if not a little longer, as a director. And then as on Stargate, there was this kind of running joke, because I was always the last person in on a Friday. And I was often looking at tennis balls on grip stands. You know, Rick had to go to LA, so he would leave. I don't know where Michael and Chris went, but I was often looking at and having the stand-ins read off camera. And then the last shot of the day is called the window. In America, I think it's called the martini, but in Canada it was called the window. But on Stargate, they called the last shot of the day the Amanda. Lucky me. It was great. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Amanda.
Hello.
Thank you that you are back here in Germany.
Thank you.
And I asking me the last years because of your hair in Stargate SG-1. Was this your haircut before, or said the producers you must cut it off? Have you long hair before Stargate?
I had like shoulder length hair when I auditioned.
Okay.
Kind of your length I had.
Okay.
And then, so for the audition I wore it, maybe a bit shorter, but I wore it up in a bun for the audition. And then when I got to set, they were like, I think we're going to give you, I think what they were going for was that Meg Ryan, what was the movie, she was in the military in the war.
Presido.
Anyone? Right? Anyway, but a Meg Ryan kind of look is what they were going for.
You like it, or
And then they got me instead.
you like it in Stargate? This
I loved
show?
it. You know what? It was so easy. I loved it. Yeah. And it changed. Like there was the season where I tried to grow it, and Chris grew the little soul patch, and the two of us looked at each other and went, "Oh, this is not working." Cut it off.
I loved your hair in Sanctuary.
That was
Full
fun.
hair.
So I had grown my hair out for Atlantis, and then went
Okay.
dark and added all sorts of stuff to it. But that was fun.
Now it's short like Sam Carter again. It's cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Hi.
Hi Amanda. I wanted to ask you about directing Supernatural, and in case you remember the scene when you directed the mixtape scene when Cass and Dean gave each other gave the mixtape back and back again, and when you filmed that, did you know, oh yes, this is going to be hundreds of fan works? And because I have a print of an oil painting of that at home.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, there is so many amazing fan arts of that scene. And, do you have another scene where you thought, oh, this is so cool, I hope fans notice this?
Well, any scene with Jensen and Misha was, I always knew the fans were going to go crazy for it. And because I had been on Supernatural in like season 8 or 9 maybe, 9, thank you, I knew how intense that fandom was and how much they loved them. So I remember, and I don't know, I think it was the scene where there was like hundreds of dead Jensens. I can't even call him by his character, but and he looked up at me and he said, you know, the fans are gonna hate you. And I went, but yeah, I guess okay. And I didn't realize how much Supernatural fans, like I knew the Stargate fandom, who were like, you know, great and go, go, go team, but it was like, you mess with those boys. And I got, for the first time, I got hate mail. I got, there was a We Hate Naomi club on the internet. It was crazy. It was crazy. I loved the fandom for it because they're so powerfully connected to that show. But my initial response to doing directing episodes or to being in them was like, just a character. I didn't write the script. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. 30 minutes, that's lots of time.
Hi, Amanda. People usually fall in one of the categories: early bird, light owl, exhausted pigeon. You seem to be an early bird with full of energy. Where do you take that energy from? Please tell us your secret.
I don't know. So I haven't really slept properly in 2 nights, and I think it's just pure adrenaline at this point. And I think really, like most people, I'm getting a lot of energy from you guys. I'm a succubus. You know what I mean? Like, I get a lot of energy from you, so. But I have always been a morning person, annoyingly so. And I think really because of 10 years on Stargate, getting up at 5 in the morning, and then being in bed by 9 has sort of created this pattern for me. So I am, yeah. Robin Dunn used to hate me on Sanctuary. Because he'd come into the trailer and I'd be like, Robin, good morning! And he'd be like, oh, same with Michael and Chris to a degree also. Shut up. How was your night? What are you doing? Yeah, I'm an annoying morning person. And then I fall asleep watching television at night. I think it's a good pattern.
Okay, for that, with television, any other incidents with naked attraction?
No. No. Do you guys know this show? We've talked about the show, Naked Attraction. We talked about it at Gavin, but has anyone seen the show, Naked Attraction? I'm scarred for life. I was gobsmacked. I was watching it going, what is this show? Like, what is it? Oh, they really are actually totally naked. Why would you? Okay. Anyway, yeah, no, I haven't seen it since because I think it left little trauma bonds in my brain. Not to say there's anything wrong with it, but it's just very weird to see it on your telly. Hello. Oh, nope. Wow! You look fantastic.
Thank you. So I was wondering if you have a project or goal, either professionally or private, that you haven't achieved yet and that you would still really like to do.
Yes, thank you for asking. There's two things, and I've talked about this before, and this film seems to be taking forever to come off the ground. I want to direct a feature film. So to that end, I was attached to a movie which I think is going to be quite phenomenal. It's called Homeless, and it's about a young person who ages out of the foster care system. And this happens all the time around the world. But our story is particular to Vancouver. It's based on a real person who is part of the whole process. And they age out, and there's really no one to care for them at 18. It's like, you're out the door and good luck. And they eventually end up on the streets of the downtown east side of Vancouver. And it's just about the community and not only their struggle, but their triumphs. And really what we wanted to do was shine a spotlight on the downtown east side, which is very impoverished, a lot of mental health issues, a lot of issues with drugs, massive issues with the unhoused. And so it's just a film I think that's very relevant right now because I think homelessness is becoming a much bigger issue than it was pre-pandemic. And so yeah, I'm really excited to get that off the ground. It's an uplifting story, believe it or not, because it is about community, but yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's right, right? Good morning.
I'm going to stand like this because my bottom just popped.
And now everyone knows. Does anyone have a sewing kit?
It's on screen behind you.
Oh.
And I'm holding, it's okay.
Avert your eyes, everyone.
Naked Attraction, there you go. I'm not gonna lie, I forgot a question. What is the craziest rumor you've ever heard about yourself?
Oh, well, that I'd slept with individually, that I'd slept with Richard or Michael or Chris. It's like you can't be an actress, back then anyway, on television with a group of men and not have everyone think that you've slept with all of them. I have not slept with any of them, just to be clear. But yeah, that always bothered me so much. It was like, why? Because I'm the girl on the show, so automatically I must need to sleep with my male co-stars. But that was that kind of endured and then comes back and then endures. I mean, yeah, that's the one that bugs me because you can't. Once that gets out there, there's always going to be somebody who believes it.
Always.
Always, no matter what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi. I want to ask you, did you sometimes laugh when Tia looked so grumpy and serious, pulling down the corners of his mouth so much?
Great question, and yes, all the time. Because Christopher is not a serious person. Like, he's just a very ebullient, funny, loud guy. And when he would do that, we would, it cracked us up every time. Because he would generally, right before, be like joking. So it's hard not to laugh. So we did often, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, could you share something with us about directing other great female characters like Sabrina or Batwoman?
Oh, okay. Sabrina was a dream. I loved that show, and all the actors were incredible, and Kiernan Shipka is like just a powerhouse. But to work with Michelle Gomez, like, it was amazing. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Phenomenal. Really, really great cast. Batwoman, I did what ended up being the final episode of their first season. And it wasn't supposed to be, but the pandemic hit and they shut us down. So, and again, great cast. But it was a different vibe. It was a very different vibe, and I think in large part because the lead didn't want to be there. So it made it a bit awkward. But the other actors were incredible, and actually I got along very well with Ruby, but I don't think that it was exactly what she wanted to be doing. So it was a different vibe. But it was fun. I mean, I had a cool episode. I mean, I got to fly Batwoman down from the rafters at BC Place and land on a field, and I got to do all sorts of cool stuff, so it was amazing. But yeah, I'm very protective of actors on my sets, and I'm very aware of the vulnerability of being an actor, but I'm also very aware of the expectation and the workload, and so I expect no less from my actors than what I gave when I was in front of the camera, which is a bit tough sometimes. Like, well, I'm really tired, and I'm like, yeah. It's raining, yeah. But we have to be outside in the rain. Yeah. So I'm maybe a little less forgiving than some. So I'm like, you're crawling through the mud in February up a mountain and talk to me about how cold you are. But to be fair, I am very, very protective of the actors, especially actresses, which is why Motherland was so special to me, to be able to go into that show as the producing director and sort of be Mama Bear for that cast. That was pretty great. Yeah.
And secondly, I just thought of that because of the other question before. It concerns farting on the SG-1 set. Who is the worst?
Oh, Christopher.
Christopher? Yeah.
But what was the worst was when they would compete.
I remember that hastily.
No. And Rick and Chris, sometimes Michael, but it was mostly Richard and Chris, who would, was volume, like how loud it was, how...
Audible texture.
Yeah, texture, yeah. How quickly the room cleared, how viscous it was.
I imagine it's quite an experience.
Yeah. But I think most people know this story, but we got our comeuppance with Chris a few times. One where he was strapped down to a table and he let one go. It's like we went to the caterers and like, no more beans, for crying out loud, no more beans. And he was strapped to his table so he couldn't leave, and everyone just left the room. We just left him there. The other one, which was great, was we had full NASA spacesuits. Yeah, and he was put in, and we had somebody there, like an actual tech, who got us into these things. Mm-hmm. And so Chris was in his, and they sealed it up, and there was a little bit of airflow, and all of a sudden we just watched him go. Ash color, and we were like, oh. The entire Thank you. Hello.
Hi. Can you tell us about Can you tell us about how much influence you will get as a director in an already successful, long-running show, like, say, Supernatural, compared to Motherland, where you were involved in other capacities?
Right. So with Supernatural, well-established show, well-established way of filming the show, well-established look. So the only autonomy you really get, and this is often the case in television. Television is more a producer's medium than a director's in a lot of ways. But you know, I get to choose how I'm going to shoot it, what shots I'm going to use, what special equipment, what angles. Like I choose all of that. But you are fitting into the pattern of the show. You don't want to suddenly shoot things weird. You say, well, that's not what our show looks like. So you have to watch a lot of the episodes. And you get talked through how the show runs. With shows like Motherland, especially in the second season, we sort of changed it up a bit. We had to change certain things. We couldn't have atmospheric smoke because of COVID. So the look of the show was really quite different in season 2 because it had to be. And so we decided to come up with a different game plan now that now that they're not in basic training anymore. We'll give it a different look. So it was fun to be able to sort of go, okay, now we're going to do shots that have a lot of movement, and now we're going to do shots that do this. So I had a bit more autonomy on Motherland, but television directing is, I just shot a first season show, and I got to play a little bit with the look of it because it was the first season, and I hadn't seen any episodes yet, so I didn't know what it looked like. So I was like, I'm gonna do this. We'll see if it makes the cut, but yeah, it's an interesting because you really do. I just did Dead Boy Detectives, Neil Gaiman's new show. Yeah, it's gonna be cool. But they had a very specific look, and so I had to work within that look, and I loved it. I loved the style of shooting and anamorphic lenses and all this cool stuff. But yeah, it was very much, this is what our show looks like, so this is what you're gonna do.
And talking about will it make the cut, you are out when shooting is done and the rest is done by the producers?
I do a director's cut, so I get an assembly from my editor. I have 4 days to do a director's cut where I trim it down and decide, what takes I want to use. And that's a really fun process. And then I hand it to the producers. And then the producers may change a lot or a little. Generally, I haven't had too much changed in my producers' cuts, but and because of the writer's strike right now, I just handed in a cut for The Irrational that was to time. Like, normally you give them a couple of extra minutes to play with, but I cut it to time so that, because they can't touch their show right now. So, but then they get it, they do a cut, and then it goes to network, and then
they do a cut. The
network has notes to justify their jobs, so. Some of the network notes are really good, and sometimes you're like, what? Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Used to happen on Sanctuary all the time with network notes. Quite fun.
Thank you.
Thank you. On Sanctuary there was we did the episode Normandy, and we had a round table. I don't even know if I can say this without getting in trouble, but we had a round table speakerphone talk with the network about the script for Normandy. One of the questions they always ask, what are the stakes? Like, we used to have post-it notes that we put on our foreheads and go, what is the stakes? And it was like, well, it's Normandy, it's World War II, the stakes are pretty high. Then again, but what are they exactly? And it's like, Nazi occupation of Europe. There's a big monster. What are the stakes? Come on! Here's a book. Read some history. But yeah, anyway, that's an aside. It's just funny. I find network notes really funny. Hello!
Hi again.
Hi!
This is about your travels. What countries have you been to or want to go? And have you ever been to Austria? And when they invite you to conventions, do they just call your agent? Do you first contact them and say, I would like to come?
As for conventions, they contact my agent, and if I'm available and I can do it, then yeah, I do it. Countries I've the bucket list countries are Italy. I've never been to Italy, and I really, really want to go to Italy. I want to take Olivia to Japan and tour Japan with her. Yeah, I mean, I've been really very fortunate in that I've traveled a lot of the world. I haven't been to China, so I'd love to see China. But if I were to pick and I've never been to Austria, even though I could have gone when I was shooting in Budapest. I could have taken a train for a weekend and gone, but I wasn't able to do it. Anyway, missed opportunity. But bucket list right now, for some reason, and maybe it's because I'm hungry, I really want to go to Italy.
Well, Italy is right next to Austria.
Yeah, so easy peasy.
Well, you come to Vienna sometime.
I would love to. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Actually, another physicist here. I'm actually from Italy, so if you want to come, can be a chaperone or something.
Thank you.
Actually, another one that not exactly grew up. I was already oldish enough with SG-1 and Atlantis and so on, but really appreciated Rod McKay, also Sam Carter, just every once in a while. Actually, the one that I appreciated the most was in the very first episode, and this connects to what you were saying before about, the fact that the genitals are inside or out doesn't really matter in that context, and well, in most contexts, I would say. My question that would be, as a scientist in himself, how do you balance? I mean, first of all, how much power do you have on it? I suppose not much, but how do you balance science fiction, like technobabble, with science fact? Do you have any choice? What is your balance?
Well, I mean, the beauty of Stargate for me was that I was talking about real things, or theoretical real things, and that there was a scientific basis for everything that I was saying, and I could research it, and a lot of what I was saying was actually happening. I mean, I didn't write the scripts, but I know that they did a lot of research to make sure that what they were doing was accurate, or conceivably accurate, right? So, I don't know if that's answering your question or not.
Yeah, no, I know that's one of the reasons why I really like Stargate. I really liked Stargate when it was on. Unfortunately, there is nothing more on. Do you have any rumor about reboots or something like this? But anyway, the question was how you personally would balance this towards the more accurate Stargate-like things and, let's say, more fantasy-like, sci-fi-like, I don't know, Star Wars, don't kill me.
Right. How would I balance it? I'm sorry, I'm not sure I'm understanding the question.
I mean, in my mind, you can always choose a balance between going towards the hard sci-fi, relatively conceivable science fiction. Like imagine what's in the episode with the black hole through the stargates with the time dilation. That showed that was a lot of research done there. A lot of time when black holes are mentioned, there's very much what you read on a subtitle somewhere, and you just think about it, and it becomes more fantasy than scientifically, I won't say accurate, but...
But I would tend towards the fantasy more than if that were the case. Just because the possibility, right? Like we have enough information to go, yeah, this is fact, but what if we pulled this cord over here?
But what if the fact tells you that you cannot pull the cord over there? That is not, let's say, I don't know the English word, but really conceivably true. Like you said before. What would you do there?
I guess I'd stick with fact if I wasn't allowed to pretend.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, did I answer it?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I'm sorry if I got you in trouble.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi. What would you say, how has the film industry changed since you started working, especially for women?
A lot. It's changed a lot. I mean, I was a product of the late 90s, early noughts, and there just wasn't as much protection. It was still very much a boys' club, the entire industry. And all of those stories have subsequently come out. But, you know, in Stargate was a very testosterone-y show. It was lovely. I mean, and I felt protected by my boys, but the industry has changed in that maybe it's not that there's more acceptance of women, but that they're not allowed to treat us the way that they used to. So there's a lot more checks and balances, if you will. So when I started directing, I came up against brick walls all the time with guys saying, well, you don't know what you're doing, and how can you understand the technical aspect of filmmaking, which I studied like, you know, a fiend. But now they would never do that to a director on set. Go, why are you doing it that way? And I got it all the time when I started. And then I finally got to the point where, because I'm fairly non-confrontational, Marina Sirtis is like, Amanda, you've got to tell them to fuck off. They can't get away with as much as they could before, and I think there's more of an awareness about not only women, but diversity, inclusion. So I think that people are more aware, and it's a gentler industry in some ways. And you know, I have a great sense of humor. I think I have a great sense of humor, so I don't mind sort of off-color jokes a little bit, but when they become a way of thinking, then there's a problem. So I try to keep, for me personally, keep my sense light and fun, but respectful. And I think that that's what we're coming to that now, fully realized respect, which is a long way from what it used to be.
That sounds promising.
It is, very much so, yeah. Well, right?
Exactly. Hi, Amanda.
Hello.
I always wondered when people ask you to direct a TV show and you don't know anything about the story, the crew, the people who are working here.
Yeah.
How do you prepare yourself? Do you watch episodes before? Do you get an update on the story? And do you Google the people you're working with?
Yeah, so generally in my interview or after, once I've gotten the job, I'll reach out to the showrunner, and especially if it's a long-running series, what are your favorite episodes and why? So that I get a really good sense of what really connects for them. I will read, and it's really hard when you're doing like the later episodes of the season, but I will read all the scripts leading up to that. So it's like, you got episode 18. But I think it's important to know where the characters are coming from and what journey they've been on for that season, so the only way you can do that is reading the scripts. It is a lot of research. And then I will reach out to the actors. Say, hey, I'm your new director, and especially when it shows that I'm not, I've never been on before. And I'll reach out and just say, I'm here, you have any questions, any thoughts, concerns, recipes. Sometimes I get recipes, it's really cool actually. But yeah, so it really is, it's just about researching and watching as many episodes, like I said, the showrunner's favorites, so I can see like the style of the show, but also what connects for them. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi. I was wondering if you could talk about working with Chris Heyerdahl in Sanctuary, because, yeah, exactly. Helen Magnus is one of my favorite character ever, and I loved the chemistry you had with him, especially when he was playing John, but also with Biggie, in every role that you have shared. So I was wondering if you could talk about that.
Well, Chris Heyerdahl is one of my favorite actors in the world. Like, I just think he's a phenomenal actor. He's so talented. And there's something about what happens when Chris Heyerdahl looks you in the eye in a scene. It's like, it's incredible. He's just, and we had a lot of fun. I mean, we laughed a lot. But there was such a beautiful intensity with Magnus and John, especially, and I almost felt like we weren't acting. And that's when you know you're in good hands. You know, the same thing with Jonathan Young, because Chris was the one who suggested Jonathan Young for the role of Tesla, and it was the same, you know, that same feeling of just you look at each other and suddenly you're not acting anymore. You're just being these characters. It's amazing. But Chris is, yeah, he's arguably one of my favorite actors. And that's not taking away from anyone else that I've worked with. It's just that there's something magical.
Absolutely agree with you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
As someone who lived in Tokyo, a Japanese tour is highly recommended. One thing, I teach technology to kids.
Oh, cool.
So you're a great role model to show up and say, like, it's not just all bespectacled lab coat wearing white men. But as yourself, are you a very technical person, or did you just constantly break the stuff on the show, all the props that you had? Has Nicotel fallen apart in your hands or something like that? Or?
There was a few times with the guns where reloading and things broke. But I think we got pretty proficient. I like to think I'm a pretty technical person and a pretty hands-on kind of person. Like I do all my, not all, because I'm not an electrician or a plumber, but I do a lot of my own home repairs or renovations, and I quite enjoy that. But yeah, the props, especially on Stargate, the Nicotels, those guns, golly, they would break. The top, I can't even do it without feeling like I'm doing something naughty. When it extended,
what did it look like?
And then the top puffed out a little bit, and yeah, and that would often break. Those would break, so you'd be stuck with a fully.
Never happens before, I swear.
Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly. But sometimes you'd be stuck with a fully upright, stiff, erect kind of.
That's longer than 8 hours, so you're
Yeah, the Viagra guns, they were, yeah. And then probably one of my proudest moments on Stargate, technically, was our armorer was really good with us. We spent a lot of time practicing with our guns, and was running down the hallway firing, and then dropping the mag and sticking a new one in while still running and still firing. And it was like, when we did it, we were all so proud of ourselves. We ran, and we did, and that, and if only we were chewing gum at the same time, we'd be superheroes. But yeah, so those kind of things. I loved learning that kind of stuff. I loved it. I'm not a fan of guns at all, but I found a zen with my weapon that I was quite proud of. Yeah. Thank you.
I would like to know, after we heard that question about the change in the film industry, especially for women, at first, when you start practice, do you have any trouble as a woman on the set?
Yes, sadly, yes, I did. I would say one of my most sort of traumatic experiences, and I won't name the show, but the showrunner was misogynist. I don't actually know why I was hired. And made my life every day a living hell. And would walk onto set after I set up a blocking, and I don't know, I really, at one point I was like, why did you hire me? Just fire me, because clearly you don't want me here. But I would walk onto set, I'd set up the whole shot, and then he would walk on and go, well, what the F is this? You call this a shot? It's like, and I literally cried myself home every night. and then would get up in the morning and cry on the way into work and just, and I don't know why. I don't know why that was. There was some sort of weird threat, and I had done enough work that I had a body of experience, but for some reason the showrunner was awful. So, to conclude the story in a positive way, at the end of the series, I got a call from one of the producers saying, your episodes were our favorite, they were great, and I was like, huh, interesting. And then years later, I was shooting a show in Budapest, and for some reason, the showrunner popped into my head. And it had been something that had eaten away at me for so long, because I was so hurt by the unfairness of it. There was no reason for him to be such a not nice person. And anyway, he popped into my head, and I'm in Budapest, so I was like, huh. I gotta do something about this. So I went back to my apartment and I sent him an email and just said, hey, I'm here in Budapest filming this show, and for some reason you popped into my head, so I thought I should reach out. And hadn't talked to him since. And it was years later. And I said, I hope you're well, Amanda. Within half an hour, I got this very long, beautiful email back about class and dignity and what a great director I was, and what a lovely woman I was, and what a class act I was, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, everything but the apology, which was okay. I give people the space to figure that out. What they did say was, I've changed the way that I work. And I put more emphasis on family, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, great. But it allowed me to close that door, which was wide open at times with the big gust blowing in, and I was like, that one, but it allowed me to close it gently and go, okay. Gave me closure, but that was not uncommon to have people walk on set and people go, why are you shooting it this way? Why are you doing it this way? You should use this lens. Director of photography who would go, no, you want a 50 mm lens. And I'm like, no, I want a 32, and I know the difference. So put a 32 on the camera. Yeah, but it's gotten better. And I think I have enough of a reputation now that it's better for me. But yeah, I think I'm just really glad I closed that big loop that was hurting me so much. I think that's another thing that's important to do. I'm very happy. Thank you.
Michael just waited.
He's Michael's friend. He's a great guy.
I don't have a question. I just want to tell you that and some numbers that you're awesome, and Samantha Carter has helped me with my self-confidence, and you look amazing. And
thank you. And thank you for having the courage to come up to the microphone. Thank you all so much. Stargate SG-1, and he played a guy studying Egypt or something. Anyway, he's wonderful, I've heard. And, all right, please welcome to the stage, Michael Shanks!